I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, March the 9th, where these feedlots are showing amazing willpower with this giant basis staring them in the face and still holding off lower bids from these packers, and it's really amazing thing and shows a strong fundamental on this fat cattle market, and the resiliency of this fat cattle market is really something to believe in. And you look at the board, it was up decent on Wednesday there, with fats up 62 cents on the nearbys and feeders up 42, but those spot fat futures are still under $1.16, with your most recent fat cattle market 125 and on the top end 126. But the Fed Cattle Exchange, what everybody was waiting on Wednesday, which it's amazing that everybody waits on that. It's really not that big a deal. Had a little over 3,400 cattle offered on there, and they only actually sold a little over 500. But the range on there was 122.50 to 124, so lower like we expected it to be. The weighted average there was 123.69 on that light run, but still wasn't able to sell any cattle in the northern plains. You'd think maybe they would try to sell some of those cattle on that auction on a dress delivered basis and probably get along better in the northern plains. But the packers are not ready to start buying a lot of cattle that way, especially on a negotiated basis in that forum. But it looked like that was the forefront of a lower market this week, and right after that Fed Cattle Exchange was over, packers did go out and try to buy some cattle, and started buying some cattle on the weak side from 123 to 124. But these feedlots balked at that. They knew that the packers needed cattle. They knew that they want to keep these kills up, and they know that everybody's pretty current, so they just pretty much dug their heels in at 125, and soon later in the afternoon cattle started bringing 125 in the southern plains. And then up in the northern plains, they're saying, hey, our cattle are grading a little better up here, and this choice select spread is starting to widen out as we're seeing more people go after these more expensive cuts, and the choice is quite a bit better than the select, and they started selling cattle actually higher up in the northern plains, 126 to 127, but not the big movement we've seen so far, and probably expecting these packers to jump out there and get just what they need for their immediate needs and then pull back, because they're not going to buy cattle as so far this week on the big negotiated volume that we've seen the last couple of weeks. But you get in the last half of March, and they've got some contracts they can pull, and they've got cattle that they've already bought the last couple of weeks lower than this that they can start pulling at on for the last half of March there. But amazing willpower on these feedlots, and very commendable for them digging their heels in, holding this market position, and holding the rest of the cattle business together. You look at your big feeder cattle sale on Wednesday was El Reno, Oklahoma. Of course, when you pile the Tuesday calves and the Wednesday yearling feeders together, had over 15,000 cattle in El Reno. Huge volume, by far the biggest feeder and stocker cattle auction in the nation there. Had over 10,000 feeders there, as they had over 4,000 head of calves on Tuesday. But the feeder cattle steadied to $2 lower, and we talked about this. Market started off the week higher on like kinds, but the overall prices were a little bit lower, as we're not seeing the kind of cattle that guys really want to dive into. But El Reno did have a lot of cattle off wheat, and probably running fairly fleshy, because as dry as it is, of course we have fires out here and loss of life, and everybody's talking about that, and it's a heartbreaking story. But amazingly, the wheat has stayed fairly good, so those cattle probably a little bit fleshy coming off wheat, and feeders steady to $2 lower, and we knew they were kind of headed that way as we talked on Tuesday. But included in that El Reno run was over 1,300 8-weight steers on Beef Market Central there that averaged 121.86. But that's your feeder flash for Thursday.